All right, folks, welcome back to the show. It's the final segment. If you're just joining us, you got time to go in there and probably get you a couple of beers, get you some nachos, and sit down, catch the final 15 minutes of this show. And then I want you to go to your room after that because you're late. Never be late to HMW Sports Talk Live. We're only here for an hour every week. Got to get here on time. 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock every Saturday. We're right here. HMW Sports Talk Live. This is a live show, not pre-taped. Anything. It is actually Marcus Coleman, former NFL defensive back, is on the phones. He spent the last segment with us. We talked a little bit about Richie Incognito. We talked a little bit about, of course, him and Jonathan Martin and that controversy with all of the bullying in the locker room in Miami. And Richard Walker, Angelo Lawford on the set. We'll go back to Marcus on the phones and continue. Marcus, I want to go ahead and bring it home locally. John McClain, you know John very well, Marcus, from the Houston Chronicle, Texans beat writer. Spent some time with Johnny Manziel last week out on the West Coast. And here's a quote from Johnny Manziel that got people to really, really talking. A lot of it was media-induced because the headlines that appeared didn't explain the reasons for Manziel's quotes, but I'll read them nevertheless. He's speaking in regard to the Texans, whether or not he wants to play in Houston and what the consequences would be if he didn't play in Houston. Comments made with a smile on his face, by the way, from what I'm told. I want them to say absolutely, without a doubt, with 100% certainty that I'm who they want. Now, this is all according to the Houston Chronicle and John McClain. I want everybody from the janitor at Reliance Stadium to the front office executive assistant all the way up to Bob McNair to say, this kid is 100% can't miss. This is who we want being the face of our program. We want the Texas kid staying in Texas and leading the Texans. I'm a Texas kid. The state means a lot to me. It would be the worst decision they ever made. Now, he was asked what would happen if the Texans didn't draft him and Jacksonville was to draft him. He went on to say, it would be the worst decision they ever made. I'd be in the same division playing against them twice a year. Sorry, but you just don't turn – but you just turned that chip on my shoulder from a Frito to a Dorito. I don't care what anybody thinks. If you work in the media, you want to cover this kid.
Definitely.
Now, Marcus, I've been the Javian Clowney guy all along because I believe in taking the best player available. And I know you have to consider need, but when you got J.J. Watt, if I'm the general manager of the Texans, it would be very hard for me to go to sleep at the night after the draft if I left the Javian Clowney on the board and I had the opportunity to draft him. There are very few circumstances that any GM who wants to keep his job would consider under 6 feet quarterback with maybe just enough arm strength, who throws off his back legs, who leaves the pocket way too early a lot of times. There are very few circumstances when a GM would consider a guy like that as a number one overall pick. But if there was ever one to consider like that, it's this kid, because even me, I admit, there's something about this kid that is completely just unreal. You don't see every day. So let me ask you, Marcus, this. From a player perspective, you heard these comments. If you were a part of that Texans 2-14 roster this year, what would you think about this, hearing this going into the draft?
Well, I would say I like that the fact that he's confident in himself and his abilities. And unlike, if I'm a personnel guy or a general manager or whatever it is, I can't get emotionally wrapped up into Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, Texas A&M, Texas kid, loves Texas. I can't get wrapped up into that.
Yes, sir.
I have to look at my team and understand and see clearly what our needs are and how to move about from that. Because here's one example. Say I do draft a quarterback take with the first overall pick. Well, I'm somewhat in a salary cap bind. I have, without a doubt, my best defensive player or probably player on the team besides Andre Johnson coming up for a contract negotiation in J.J. Watt. So I have to have money, available for that. I just signed Brian Cushing to an extended deal. I have Daniel Manning, who was injured this year, and I have Jonathan Joseph, who's been a little up and down because of whether it be injuries or whatever reason that I'm paying him a substantial amount of money. I'm paying Arian Foster a substantial amount of money. Now, that's not, even if the cap does go up, which, it is, it's only going to go up, 3% or 2% or whatever the number is.
Yeah, that's not a significant increase.
Yeah, it's not a big increase at all. So,
and you're paying Dwayne Brown good money too.
And I'm paying Dwayne Brown. I can't go out and sign any free agents. So, and I know, looking at the team that I had last year, I'm having trouble with depth at certain positions, inside linebacker, possibly D-line, in the secondary, wide receiver. I'm having, issues at depth. I'm not going to be able to, one, fill all those needs, and then two, if my owner, Mr. McNair, is expecting the abrupt turnaround that, he so openly spoke about, I don't think he's taking into account that I'm drafting a guy straight out of college. There's going to be some ups and downs throughout the season. He's going to struggle through the season. He's probably going to have some good games, but he's going to have his share of bad games as well. And we may end up finishing 8-8 and 9-7. There may not be a playoff run or getting to the second round of the playoffs or getting into the playoffs at all or winning the division. So you have to take all those things into account, and I have to say, okay, where are my needs? Okay, I do need another pass rusher for sure. I definitely need another quarterback. However, at the quarterback position, I have a few options. I can possibly trade for an ex-player that my head coach has worked with before. There's some other veterans that are sitting out there. There's some other options, at that position that I can probably, tinker with later, and I can deal with that later. Right now, I need to figure out who's going to truly be where my depth is going to be at inside linebacker, at D-line, in the secondary. I need to find another running back because I know Ben Tate's probably not going to be here. I need to find another wide receiver because I need somebody that's going to not only step in behind Andre Johnson, but be the number 2 guy. I have to worry about my tight end because I think Owen Daniels is a free agent as well. So
yes,
there's so many needs and so many holes. You can't just bank on drafting Johnny Manziel and thinking it's going to cure everything, and that's just not how it happens.
Let me ask you this, Marcus, because we're getting short on time, and I want to try to get a couple other things in real quick. You know what the perception is of the Texans in the general public, which is all led and fed by what people hear in the media, and they just believe what they hear and run with it. You have a different perspective. You played for the team. You were a Texans ambassador at one point. Is it possible that these statements that Johnny Manziel made to John McClain, did he, by any chance, guarantee that he won't be drafted by the Texans? Are they the type of organization that will say, "Oh my God, too brash, too cocky"? Because I heard a little bit of that, and I just know what people think about the perception they have. Is that the culture there? And it only matters if that's the culture from the owner to the general manager level, because if they're in sync in if they're going to ride together, so to speak, if they're aligned in their thought process, I don't care who it is, Bill O'Brien, Jimmy Johnson, or Bill Parcells, you're not going to overrule the owner and the GM. Are the Texans that type of organization? Did him coming out with such a brash statement just guarantee he's not going to be a Texan?
I don't know if it guaranteed that he's not going to be one, but I think the thing that Mr. McNair and Rick Smith have learned this third time around in picking a head coach is that, yes, they can be involved, they can have some say. However, the coach and the general manager and the head coach have to be in sync as far as what kind of players fit that system, fit the culture that the head coach is trying to move in, and how it's going to fit in, with the rest of the coaches. I understand that Mr. McNair and he's done a great job of putting a great face and having the Texans being held in high regard as a great organization. He's done a great job at that. However, that doesn't translate to wins and Super Bowls on the field. And we've seen that there's been some grimy organizations or, quote unquote, not so graciously held organizations that win Super Bowls. You look at the old school Raiders, and I understand that there was Al Davis. That's just one example, but there's, everything's not going to be peachy. You're going to have to be able to make tough moves, and your head coach is going to have to be the guy that implements that culture, and you have to give him what he needs in order to give you the wins that you want. So they can't focus on that. They're going to sell tickets. People are going to come to the game, win or lose, and that's been proven, throughout the tenure of the organization. Now it's time to win. Now you need somebody in there like a Bill O'Brien that's really tough. It'll be tough on his coaches and his players. Get the right players in there with that same mindset, and it doesn't necessarily rule out Johnny Manziel, because you know what? If O'Brien comes from, similar schools, Belichick, Parcells, et cetera, they're worried about wins. They don't care about your brashness as long as it doesn't create controversy and you're not in trouble. If you can come in and fit in to what they're trying to do and you win, that's really all that matters. So I would say no. It doesn't guarantee that he's not going to be drafted by them.
Hey, Marcus, we appreciate you, man. We tight on time. We're going to go ahead and jump out. Folks, that was Marcus Coleman. Marcus, we definitely thank you, man. We'll do it again, bro.
Oh, absolutely, man. No, my pleasure. Appreciate it and everything.
All right, we'll be calling on you, brother.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Folks, that'll do it for today's show. I know we ran over a little bit, but we'll be able I know some of you folks are saying, man, we lost you. No, you'll get it on the podcast. You get it on the podcast. We appreciate you. HMW Sports Talk Live. We'll see you next week.
If it ain't live, it ain't me. Oh, nigga, too deaf to lose, too shy to slip and slide. I'm too hard to fall apart. I'm too cold to get old. I'm too hip to trip. I do it to 'em like this. I wanna load it up, cock back, don't miss. Y'all ain't gonna believe this. Got the preacher wife talking about rock that. If it ain't live, it ain't me. Oh, nigga, too deaf to lose, too shy to slip and slide. I'm too hard to fall apart. I'm too cold to get old. I'm too hip to trip. I do it to 'em like this.